Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, at the start of the new year, we all have the tendency to kind of look to new beginnings. We make new personal goals and we try and figure out how we're going to accomplish them throughout the upcoming year. And with Lunar New Year coming up right around the corner, I thought this might be the perfect time to share just a couple recommendations about films all about personal journeys and quests. Now, today's picks feature a young woman's Wizard of Oz-esque trek through a dark version of her own world, a chubby martial arts loving panda, and a martial arts parody that brings both laughter and some really fantastic action fight sequences and blends it all together in a satire of a 16th century Chinese novel. So as always, these recommendations are available to you entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin Library card. And without any further ado, let's jump right into the recs. All right, our very first recommendation of the day is available on physical media through our CleveNet services, and that is 2008's Kung Fu Panda. Now, this fantastic all-ages feature is an animated film set in an alternate ancient China, which is populated by all of these anthropomorphic animals, and it centers around Po, this lovably bumbling, dumpling and martial arts loving panda who desperately dreams of being a kung fu legend. He, in fact, already thinks he's a kung fu master in his own right. He's not, by the by. Through a series of rather surprising circumstances, he ends up named this prophesied dragon warrior who is supposed to save all of China from an evil snow leopard. This seems very unlikely. Very unlikely. And to sort of maybe aid in his becoming worthy of being the dragon warrior, he's sent to train with Master Shifu, an adorable red panda, along with all of Shifu's other students, and antics ensue. They, no surprise, and I don't think this is a spoiler, end up all developing bonds and friendships, and that's kind of the whole point of the movie, is to sort of journey into becoming both a better part of yourself, but also being able to let other people in and let them see who you really are. And it's just a really lovely, fun film. So, and besides being fun and absolutely hilarious, Po is voiced by Jack Black, who is always wonderful. It's also very much an homage to traditional wuxia and martial arts films. That had not been the film's initial intent. The executive producers who sort of launched this whole idea had thought they would make a parody, which I don't know that would have worked when you think about the age demographic of this film. A parody tends to need some sort of familiarity with the source material, right? And I don't know how many tiny kids are going to be super familiar with your classic martial arts movies, but I know lots of kids like a hero story and an underdog story at that, and that works perfectly with this film. With that sort of all ages friendly kind of hero's journey epic that we've got here, we've also got a lot of fairly traditional Chinese storytelling paths. So they're very much staying true in a lot of ways to your more traditional martial arts films, because let's be real, there aren't too many dumpling loving pandas in Chinese wuxia films. So yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies that works really well whether you're 5, you're 15, you're 50, because they've managed to layer different kinds of humor. There's more of like just like the kid-friendly slapstick stuff that's absolutely all over this. But you've also got sort of like the clever, witty dialogue going on too. And that works largely in part because they do have a fantastic cast in this. I mean, you've got, like I said, Jack Black. You also have Dustin Hoffman playing Master Shifu. Your villain is played by Ian McShane, who is terrifying most of the time in real life and works just as much so as a terrifying snow leopard. Angelina Jolie, Seth Rogen, Lucy Liu. I mean, Jackie Chan's got a voice part in here. I mean, it's a ridiculous cast. Like, seriously, it's so stunt casted. But everyone knows why they're there and what they're doing, and they do it very effectively. So it's very enjoyable no matter what your age and what you're looking for when you come to this particular film. So if you are looking for something that's really quite charming and sweet, because this is at its heart a lovely hero's journey, we're seeing Poe go from very much the underdog to being an actual hero. And we're seeing the journey and who he brings along with him for that journey. We see, a lot of really beautiful uh, sort of mythological elements that, would be familiar to someone who is going to be used to watching martial arts films, but that are absolutely gorgeous to watch and be entertained by if you have no familiarity whatsoever. It's just at the heart a great family-friendly movie that will be sure to keep you entertained. So if that's what you're looking for, 100% recommend 2008's Kung Fu Panda, and that is available on physical media, both Blu-ray and DVD, which will be linked to below. All right, moving on to my next recommendation. This one is available on Hoopla, and that is 2013's Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons. So you know how I said it was a really great idea that for Kung Fu Panda, they didn't turn that into a parody like they originally intended because it was able to reach a much broader audience? Well, Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons is 100% a parody / send-up of the whole martial arts genre. But it 100% also skews older, and it does lean into the idea that you are already going to be familiar with a lot of the tropes that are approached in this movie. Let's backtrack just a moment. So this is a rather loose, very comedic adaptation of a really famous 16th century Chinese novel, also called Journey to the West, and that famous novel is also the basis for a slew of other Chinese films, television series, manhua. Like it's everywhere, and that's part of the gag with this. Like, this is a completely different kind of Journey to the West from what you've seen before. At least that's the idea. It was written and directed by Stephen Chow, who has done some amazing films, and it's done in a way that is delightful on many levels. So it is absolutely hilarious. It is absurd from the first couple of scenes. You have some way over the top monsters. You have ridiculous situations. You have ridiculous characters. But you also have exceptionally well choreographed action sequences. And seriously, some of the fighting is just as hardcore and on par with your serious martial arts films. I mean, it's very well done. And as someone who has grown up and always loved wuxia movies and film and TV series, like, I absolutely adore this. I just think it's so much fun because, as I said, it pulls from those familiar elements and just spins them a little bit. One of the other things that really works well with this, so it's got a lot of CGI, and it's definitely CGI from the 2010s, the early 2010s at that. But at the same time, it kind of works to have it be a little bit wonky. Say, rather than the special effects that you would see in a lot of these kinds of films with today's technology behind them. Having that slightly cardboard set feeling, and then that's just a comparable thing to, comedy and parody from a couple of decades past. That's what the special effects would have been to them comparatively. Still effective, but also a little bit funny. Part of the gag. With your basic storyline, you've got Tang Sanjiang. He is an aspiring Buddhist demon hunter. He goes from village to village trying to remove these demonic presences without using deadly force. the way that he manages this is to recite these really classic nursery rhymes to them and to appeal to their softer, gentler side. And the process of him doing that is also very methodical and slow and calm, and you watch the demons sort of be taken aback and not really sure how to interact with him or react to him, because usually there's a whole lot of violence, and it's not that there aren't fight elements there too, but they're just as taken aback as you are from the way he behaves. And I think it should be zero surprise, and again, zero spoiler, that he's really bad at his job as a demon hunter. I mean, like, most demons are like, nah. And he ends up having to be saved many, many, many times, often by this one particular female demon hunter who is just as appalled at his methods as the villagers, the demons, and the audience. And again, part of the gag. But what's very much in the tradition of your hero story is that he doesn't give up. He might question his reasoning, and a lot of that has to do with his original master and how he was trained and how he was taught to believe, which again is part of the trope of you always follow your master no matter what. And he continues on his journey. Like, he never stops. He keeps trying to fight the good fight. And so you've got a lot of that parody and the absurd situations and the sort of messed up CGI, but you also have a lot of heart. And my absolute favorite part is the way that they weave the comedy in with the incredibly intricate choreography for these fight scenes. It really is incredibly impressive, and I love stuff like that when it's working on so many levels, and it's not just Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which absolutely gorgeous film. But I think having to add the layer of humor on top of that shows a real skill that is incredibly impressive all on its own. Like, comedy in general, I think, is just very impressive because it's hard. Being funny is really hard. And when it's done well, like it is in this movie, it's just fantastic. So if you're looking for a hero story that's got a lot of comedy, that has excellent action, that has ridiculously well choreographed fight scenes, and still has a good amount of heart, make sure you check out Journey to the West: Conquering the Demons. It is a fantastic film. Okay, my final recommendation for this week is available on Canopy, and that is 2005's Mirrormask. I adore this movie. I watched it when it first came out in 2005. I watched it just the other weekend for a refresher, and I still absolutely love this movie. So Mirrormask is a dark fantasy film from the minds of Dave McKean and Neil Gaiman. If you're familiar with either of their work, I think you should probably know kind of the color and feel and vibe of this movie. I think a good way to describe it would be if The Wizard of Oz and The Never-Ending Story had a baby, and that baby was a little bit darker than both of those films and definitely a whole lot more surreal, but still kept with a lot of those same themes. And I will get to those in a moment, but it definitely takes a lot from both of those stories, and it's very present, but not in an obtrusive way. It's not like, well, this is just a send up of The Wizard of Oz or whatever. No, it's not that. It definitely evokes a lot of those emotions, and certainly story-wise pulls from certain tropes from both of those movies. Now, it is pretty dark. I mean, I don't think I'm overstressing that. Though Common Sense Media does give it a 9+, which I do think it skews a little young, because parents said 12+, and even children who rated it thought you should at least be 10 when you watch it. I think maybe more understanding the story elements rather than it being like overly scary or anything like that. But I would say I would more go with 10 or 12 rather than 9. But that's me. It's definitely something that if you have kids and you are considering showing this, you should check out the movie first. So like our other stories, this one is 100% a personal journey. In Mirrormask, our main character is a young woman who is part of a circus family. She kind of hates it, and rather than wanting to, like, well, most children, they dream at some point of running away to the circus. She dreams of running away and having a normal, ordinary life with normal, ordinary parents. Uh, she hates the whole transitory thing, and she doesn't like that their jobs are weird and not normal parent jobs. But then a tragedy strikes her family, and she wakes up in this alternate kind of version of her world. Um, she recognizes tons of the faces, but they're all just a little bit off because they all have these sort of masks that are very much actually part of their physiognomy. So it's not like a party mask that you can just take off. No, it's actually part of their skull, and it's quite jarring to see it on screen. Like it just feels very off-putting, and not in or it just makes you feel a bit off kilter. Like, yeah, the world that she's now in is strange and unusual, but these people are freaking me out. And you absolutely get that sort of like on edge vibe. Everything is just not right. And these masked versions of the people she knows, they also all have very different behaviors than the people that she's used to. Now, this alternate version of her world is being slowly consumed by a darkness. Again, there's that call out, the darkness from Neverending Story. And so she ends up being sent on this quest to find uh, this object, which is the Mirrormask, that is the only way to fight off the darkness. And along the way, she is hoping to figure out how she can get back to her own world, because this world is, again, a little bit creepy and strange. It is also visually stunning, creepy, strange, and absolutely gorgeous. And they pull in all of these different emotions by using these strange shades of, sepias and browns and creams, and then hitting it with pops of different colors. You get, every time you see a different, like, more vibrant tone, it evokes something else and something that you haven't been feeling. And it it's just a different way to feel while you're viewing a movie. And I really, really enjoy any time you're dealing with film and the art of the film actually is capable of making you feel something you're absolutely not expecting. The other work that I think people who have watched a lot of dark fantasy might be more prone to drawing connections to would be Stranger Things, because of course Stranger Things in the Upside Down. But those dark alternative mirror worlds are a trope for like how long? I mean, they're all over. So it's not like Stranger Things was cribbing off of this or anything like that. It's just that's a pretty standard trope, and a pretty effective one as well, I think. And of course, I mean, like, you strange alternative world, that is 100% Wizard of Oz, and that's, what was that, 39? In any case, this is not a new concept, but it's just done so well in Mirror Mask. And I think anyone who enjoys that particular genre, like the dark fantasy thing, or who just likes quest movies in general, because this is a really good quest movie. I would say other comps besides like A Never-Ending Story, the Fall would be really good visually. Another arresting film, things like that. I think that puts you just a little bit on edge, that or a little bit off kilter, are good comps for this. So if you enjoy that, make sure you check out 2005's Mirrormask. It's on Canopy, 100% worth watching. You won't regret it. Okay, so those were my recommendations for this week. If you have any films you'd like to share that have to do with personal journeys or quests, please, please, please comment with those below. If you have any recommendations for future themes you'd like to see me cover, definitely would love to hear from you about those. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I love putting together these lists. This week in particular was such a fun one for me. I love this genre of film. Um, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Once more, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week.